back to Watchbox Studios. I am your host, Tim Masso. This evening on Watches Tonight, we discuss the most expensive watches from Omega. I share your wrist shots and answer your live questions tonight on Watches Tonight. Spare a thought for the redesigned homepage of thewatchbox.com. The people who pay for these pixels. Over 3,000 pre-owned late model and vintage watches live right now. Truly, watches from $1,000 to $1 million. There is something for everyone. Even if you're just window shopping, open a new tab, check it out, but keep me streaming. Jumping into the box, we got Edward Ledden, Matt Foster, Enrique Casiano, we've got Butik One. Good morning, evening, wherever you are. I agree with that. My man from Poland, Richard Combs from South Florida, Jim Millett, Joe Pinto. From Central New Jersey, instead of Louisville this time, we got Ron H. Aussie is in, getting up early with us. Jim Millett, Geezer, Miroslav R, Dan CT, Mateo, Hale Bop, Dave Openkar, Anthony Sincan from London, staying up late, Mark S from Brooklyn, and a Mick in Florida, plus Paul Steinberg Associates and Will Charlesworth. Guys, welcome. So we're going to check out some of yours on mine. Viewer wrist shots number 1. Starting Jared L, who knows I love Laurent Ferrier and dogs, so he gives me both. With his Gallet Square micro rotor looking good, one of the best buys in independent horology today. Richard C pegs the meter with his genuine 1905 Patek Philippe Chronometro Gondolo as retailed at Gondolo and Laborio. That is the real McCoy. Ronan D, though, also stuns with his Longa 1 time zone and his Strandberg Bowden 7 Axe. Good times and good tunes. We have American Jedi on the flight deck of an American aircraft carrier with his Rolex GMT Master 2, and Steve G with his Rolex Milgauss Z Blue, reminding me of all I am missing. Guys, send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag at thewatchbox.com to see yours on mine. James T joining in from Indonesia, getting up early. Joe Tyson from Apex, North Carolina. We got Zafar B from Zurich in Switzerland, the homeland of watchmaking. Ordinary 999 from Norway, and in fantasy from North Carolina, Alex O and Michael H joining in. Michael H, by the way, from Germany, again, staying up late with us in Europe. So today we explore the most expensive Omega watches as we enter 2022. All prices will be current. We have a few notes on this matter. Omega is where I started my journey as a collector, and I have to admit, a big part of my sentimental loyalty still lies with the brand from BN. Now, Omega watches typically exist in the mid-luxury segment, which means they are at prices that correspond roughly to companies like Breitling, Grand Seiko, Tudor. At times, even Rolex comparisons are natural. By the way, $6,300 for that one right there. But here's the thing, at Rolex, the most expensive watches generally are pretty predictable. They're heavily jeweled versions of precious metal versions of conventional Rolex watches. In contrast, Omega maintains a huge range of historical models, métier d'art, complications, and extreme horology options that are priced according to their unique qualities. So, in this case, price actually corresponds to qualities that traditional watch collectors value. It helps set Omega apart from its giant rival in Geneva. So we're going to take a look at some of the most expensive Omega watches right now. Before the new model launches for 2022, everything from sports watches to dress watches, complications and simple. If you like watches, you will find something you like among the most expensive Omega watches of the moment. By the way, we've got LJR joining from Dublin, Ireland, Eric Nielsen from Asheville, North Carolina, and Scott Wexland from Westchester, Pennsylvania, Jeffrey Rosen from my old stomping grounds in Syosset on Long Island. Okay, so jump back to 2018 and the re-edition of the Omega First Wrist Chronograph. It was a monster. Just the facts here. 18-piece limited edition, handcrafted from white gold. It included a white enamel dial comprised of 3 separate fired white enamel discs and a new old stock size 18 caliber 3018 movement. This was originally designed for a pocket watch, but back in 1913 it found its way into the first Omega wrist chronograph, and that's exactly what has been reproduced albeit to a luxury standard in this model. Now that movement has been entirely finished to haute horlogerie standards by the people who typically do the Omega Tourbillon watches, so you know no expense was spared and no detail was overlooked. So consider how unique this is among large brands, and again, we're talking about Breitling, we're talking about Rolex, we're talking about Tudor. This is the kind of thing Les Artisans de Genève might attempt in their wildest Rolex modding dreams. A what-if watch created by the aftermarket. The difference is that this was done by the factory and done beautifully. You can see right there, 0 of 18. Now that was a prototype piece right there, but it's representative. Wire lugs, white gold rivet straps, just enough two-tone to add some warmth. This watch was finished by that specialties department that does everything from the Calibre 321s to the Tourbillons to some of the vintage reedition pieces like this one. There is a heartbeat of high horology inside Omega, and that is from whence this hails. Now, each watch, I should mention, is a tribute to the 1913 model, and you can see quite easily that in person it's enormous, almost big pilot-like, but it has a lovely hunter caseback which gives you the best of both worlds. You get a solid gold caseback and you get a sapphire display caseback with a little bit of the underlying pocket watch genetics that went into the original model. So even the boxed set here was over the top. Take a look, it's a veritable steamer trunk. You've got that Chesterfield stitching inside, it's leather lined. You've got 3 straps, 2 accessory straps, a strap tool, a loop, you've got a travel pouch, and the whole box, you can see it's been stitched by hand, made of wood but lined in leather. Very, very, very special. A radically bespoke accessory set, if I do say so myself. Even the Omega logo on the key to the box is correct vintage for 1913. So now, pricing. When this came out, it was 121,000 US dollars. 120,000 Swiss franc was the price at the time, converted to just under $121,000. Good luck finding one today. Just about all of them were sold immediately. It was a very special watch and a landmark piece. And watches like this are part of what makes Omega so lovable. That is not the kind of watch you produce if you're looking for mass-produced profit margins and economies of scale. Let's see what's going on in the box. We've got Mark S., he's the Spoil Sport, saying, I hate wire lugs and two-tone. Oh well. And then we've got Steve M., Canada, showing up strong tonight. We've got PS 7256 congratulating Patrick on his catch. Let's see, what did Patrick add? Can I find him here? I'm looking, but I can't find Patrick's post, but we know he added some sort of a watch, so he's doing well. We got Ruben joining in from Singapore. Been meaning to reach out to you. I'm a huge fan of Girard-Perregaux, but would like to clarify that the Laureato bezel does not screw into the case. That's true. I once believed it. It's not the case, pun intended. It does look like a mechanical fixture, but it's been a long time since that's how they were assembled. What else is going on here? We have Miroslav saying, Central Tourbillon incoming. Ooh, you're going to have to send me a wrist shot of that. Remember, Monday mailbag at thewatchbox.com. Simon Holt joining in. Simon, you're in my wrist shots tonight. Glad to see you there. And Abdul from Germany and PS 7256 from Victoria, British Columbia. We got Crazy Watch joining in from Luxembourg and Fabian C. from Atlanta. I used to live in Atlanta. All right, back to our regularly scheduled program. If you wanted to focus more on the craft arts than vintage style watchmaking, then the 2017 Omega Seamaster Aqua Terra Worldtimer limited edition was for you. Now this was a truly limited edition. 18 pieces is what we saw on the last model. A few more of these, but at 87 pieces with what was then a unique movement and a still unique dial, exclusivity was assured. Each watch, first of all, platinum, full platinum, and not just outside, inside. That's the case and that's the dial. The first modern world time watch from Omega. So each dial, if we can get a little bit closer here, included platinum hallmarking because the dial base was granular media blasted and made of a platinum disc. We had true yellow gold hands and indices, not plated, solid. And then at center, we had a fired enamel projection of the northern hemisphere. They pulled out all of the stops, with Paris, or at least the Paris time zone, being replaced by Omega's home city of Bienne. Now the case, at 43 millimeters, did not short you the precious metal. The weight was incredible, thanks to the platinum and the gold inside and outside. I should also mention Omega pushed further with a unique caliber 8939 that included solid 18-karat rose gold parts, both the balance bridge and the rotor. A platinum deployant clasp, though not seen in press photos, was present and correct, and that's how a platinum watch should be built. If you get a platinum watch, you need a platinum buckle or platinum clasp. I've seen too many white gold attachments to platinum watches. It's the wrong way to do it. Omega was doing things the right way. So what do you get? Well, in addition to exclusivity and a lot of heavy metal, you get something that is very, very versatile. This watch retained all of the underlying qualities of the Seamaster Aqua Terra, which means 150-meter water resistance, amagnetic, so basically not anti-magnetic, just infinitely immune to the forces of magnetism. A coaxial escapement and a master chronometer certified, the watch was and remained an excellent timekeeper. And I should mention that the timepiece, the box in this case, the timepiece and the box were special. The presentation was bespoke. It wasn't quite as rich as the first wrist chronograph, but then again, this is above and beyond with a lovely burl wood box and that customized Worldtimer interior. It had a sense of occasion to it. Now this is like a Patek Philippe 5231 that you can wear at the beach, and for $48,600, it was priced for the elite of world travelers. That said, the Patek costs $81,610, and the Patek can't get wet. So advantage Omega. Let's see what's in the box right here. We got Glenn saying he is a fan of the Omega Worldtimer, and I gotta agree with you right there. Michael H saying that's a very under-the-radar watch. Yeah, everyone knows the steel model that came out 2 years later, but the original platinum 87-piece enamel dial limited edition was one of the coolest Omegas of the modern era. We got Adrian Ward. Good evening, Tim. Good evening, Adrian. Thank you for joining me. And we have Neff saying, I like the map more on the steel one than on this Aqua Terra. Well, you know, that's fair. The laser ablated dial on the steel version does look pretty cool. It's a handsome looking piece in its own right, and of course the price is right, far more accessibly priced, plus you've got the bracelet option, which did not exist on the platinum watch. What else is up? Ricardo, hi Tim, just in case you are not aware, but restrictions on going to the barber have been lifted. Well, you see, here's the thing. If I ever really need my hair to look good, people come and they style it, and I don't have to pay a cent. I got the life, guys. What else is going on? Jean-Claude Biver saying that Patek is insanity. And then we got James T. Tim, what are the under 10K Worldtimers? Well, there's a version from Mont Blanc, there's a version from Louis Vuitton, and of course you've got the Omega pre-owned, so you've got some options out there. What else is going on? Franz Davis saying, I like the Worldtimer in the shop window, but didn't like it on my wrist. A lot of that comes down to the size of the case, and it is a big chunky thing, there is no doubt. So wrist shots number 2, I asked, you answered, starting with Harry B., who is London, with his D. Dornbluth & Son 99.1M on a Milanese bracelet. We like our Dornbluth watches, especially against the overcast British sky. It's in the national character. Tobias L. is out for a ride in Phuket with his IWC Big Pilot's Watch 43 on full bracelet. Ride safely. Michael M. and his Damasco DC67. They're out with Sylvester the Sheepadoodle, a breed which apparently exists. Neil S. and the Cartier Santos join us from sunny Boca Raton, Florida, one of my favorite places in the world to ride my bike, right on A1A. Brian L. shares his Zenith A3818 Revival. This one's nicknamed the Cover Girl by collectors for a reason to which he alluded, but you could see it featured on the cover of the Manfred Rossler volume on historic Zenith watches. That's why it's called the Cover Girl. It is not a Cover Girl limited edition. It's literally the girl on the cover. Okay, so the most expensive Omega watch has continued, and don't worry, that one will feature. But for now, I need to remind you that not every expensive Omega watch involves complications or high horology movement finish. In 2019, Omega released, well, really stunned with the release of 2 Seamaster 300s. This is their most basic vintage flavored dive watch. 3 hands, no date, just right in this case. 2 cases, in fact. You had a dial in lapis lazuli, which typically was portrayed in platinum, and then you had a malachite dial. This one was typically portrayed in yellow gold, but as we will see, you could get either dial in either case metal. Mechanically, they were the standard 41mm SM300 dive watches with caliber 8400, 60 hours of power reserve, silicon hairsprings, chronometer certification, and coaxial escapements. Despite the exotic metal cases and dials, they remained 300 meters water resistant, so critically, they retained all of the capability of the underlying watch, and they wore the same way, just weightier, figuratively and literally. What we're looking here with the SM300 lapis dial, and they were really handcrafted. They were cut, they were polished, they were fit and garnished, and I actually like the lapis one because it has a wonderfully warm photina. And while I don't normally like photina, here it's got a little bit of an ecru orange color that's actually a really good match for the blue of the dial and the little yellow flecks that you find in lapis lazuli. The case in platinum is probably the best match for this one, though. As we'll see in a moment, you can definitely get the malachite dial in the platinum. But first, the green malachite dial included a yellow gold case in its most common configuration to match its intensely detailed dial gradients. Because of the nature of both of these materials, malachite and lapis, no two dials were exactly alike, which gives each watch the air of a piece unique. And if we're being strict, each one is. I would also say that you could swap metals, and here we get into the permutations, and get lapis in yellow gold, and there it is right there. And my favorite combination, green malachite in platinum on the green leather strap. But we're focusing on the most expensive Omega watches, so why don't we raise the stakes? Both watches were available with full bracelets, if you wish, in matching platinum and gold. And there you can see the malachite dial with the platinum, and I think that really is the sweet spot. Get it on the bracelet if you want to make a real statement. But the cool thing about that watch is, unlike a gemmed out Daytona, most folks don't have any idea how much this costs or what it is. So it's not going to draw unwanted attention, and that's one of the best qualities of several of these truly expensive Omega watches. Only a connoisseur or a big brand fan is going to actually know what they are and what they cost. So you won't have to field unwanted questions about how rich you are or what the watch was priced at. Now, I should also mention a yellow gold green malachite dial on a strap was the entry level, so $28,900 if you wanted to get into this family of watches, and the full fat platinum with bracelet and the lapis dial, $69,100, which is still pretty fair considering what you're getting and the level of exclusivity. You can't exactly find one of these at every Omega boutique, and they tend to be made to order. Okay, jumping into the box, we have Young Kim saying this versus that. We got PS 7256 saying platinum is the ticket, and I tend to agree. Michael Heidorn saying, now that is sexy. Eric Taylor, tell us about the clock behind you. That is my Nixie clock. Dalibor Farney, who makes these in the Czech Republic. He makes the tubes, he makes the machine. He sent me that one for my set and for a review. And periodically, it will shuffle the deck and reset its timing, and that's what it's doing right there. You can hook it up to the cloud. Mine is actually offset a few minutes, and I need to correct it, but I'm very happy with it. If you want to check it out, that is the Puri 6 Nixie clock by Dalibor Farney. All right, let's see how many people are watching right now. We got 283 of you live. Let's get that number over 300. Sean's standing by. He's going to help us happen. Okay, so this is happening right here. I'm going to get to my personal favorite. This is the one that I would buy above all the other options tonight because I like a versatile and resilient watch. And the Aqua Terra Ultralight, which came out in 2019, is my favorite watch in this episode, and there is a lot to love about it. It is an extreme sports watch, launched with golf in mind, but applicable to any high-impact accessory. For me, that would be cycling, jogging, or mountain biking. Now, if you followed the watch hobby long enough, you know that golf is pretty much the most abusive use of a watch that doesn't involve actually running it over. Golf is one of those things that you always warn a buyer not to do while wearing a watch. It is the quickest way to wind up with a four-figure service bill that includes parts replacement from some obscure factory in Switzerland. A watch that can survive the shock of a driver, and I'm not talking about monster trucks, I'm talking about the green. That watch can survive biking, tennis, firearm use, even jackhammers. The watch that can survive golf is the most durable watch you can find, which is why most people just buy a Timex Ironman or a G-Shock and leave it at that. So this is a big deal, and it's the kind of watch that Richard Mille, that's Bubba Watson right there, Richard Mille ambassador. But it's the kind of watch that Richard Mille charges deep into six figures to buy, even with their most basic golf watch, the RM55 Bubba Watson right there. Okay, back to the Omega Ultralight. The Ultralight is a very special watch because it offers 1, 2, 3 different applications of titanium inside and out. The dial is a very thin-shaved, solid disc of titanium with no date. The watch is 41 millimeters, like a standard Aqua Terra, but for the record, this is the grade 5 stuff, so scratch resistance is beyond the scratch resistance of steel, and it is far lighter than steel, because it also features a titanium movement. The mass of the whole assembly is 55 grams, which is competitive with the previous generation aluminum case, aluminum bracelet FP Journe line sport watches. Now take a look at that movement. That is caliber 8928 Ti. It is only used on this model. Manual wind, grade 5 titanium, fully shock resistant with a 3-day power reserve. Now it's true that RM also has titanium movements. Richard Mille has those, but it orders them from Vaucher manufacture, which builds them to suit. You will only find this movement in Omega watches. And you can see everything about the architecture is built to make the watch more shock tolerant, right down to removal of the winding system. Winding systems are not as shock tolerant as manual wind architectures, which is exactly why Omega has made this choice. But for those who think Omega coaxials are too thick, this also reduces the thickness of the watch, which is a double win by my standards. Now, the watch is still amagnetic, and it is still protected down to 150 meters against water intrusion, so you don't sacrifice anything. Take a look at that crown right there. Take a look at how recessed it is. The unique spring-loaded crown retracts into the case flank to protect it from blows during use. Very few, and mainly high horology watches, use this feature. Think David Kondo. Think APRP built Chanel watches, that kind of high horology. 3 different color accents are available, and you can see them all here. Obviously, the green one is my favorite, and they do sweat the details with a green printed dial, green varnished seconds hand, and matching green stitched strap. At $48,600, the Omega Ultralight is the world's most affordable Richard Mille. And I should mention, each watch comes with that wonderful NASA-inspired Velcro strap that you saw earlier. We had one of those with the Velcro strap earlier in this segment. Well, that Velcro strap is very similar to what you get on the Moonwatches, but it's also very similar to what you get with a lot of high-end Richard Mille sports watches. All right, jumping into the box, Steve M saying that crown is sick. Tiberius IV saying he was put on Earth to review watches. I appreciate that, guys. I'm working on a car podcast, so you might be able to get more of me in the world of machines macro and micro. Chris L saying, I love the Omega Aqua Terra line. This one is beautiful. And then we have Gail Mibson saying, automatic watches on the range, no problem at all. Some will survive, some will not. I've seen both success stories and horror stories, which is why I generally advise against. It's a risk. It's definitely a high price to pay for guessing wrong, and not every watch reacts to it the same way. And then right here, we have Seth saying, this ultralight is gorgeous, and I have to agree. We got Jacek joining in from Amsterdam, and Edward Ledden saying, I don't really do sports, but this watch is also more durable in daily use. There are some times when I just have to pound on my desk in frustration because some confounding thing comes through on email, and that's when I need a shock-resistant watch. Plus, we all know that from time to time watches get dropped. What else is going on here? We got Eric R. Aloha, tegmented spring drive, goodness from Utah. I like that. You got to send me a wrist shot of that. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled program. I asked you answered viewer wrist shots number 3. Let's see how many we have. We have 348 watching, guys. Let's make that 400 tonight. This is all Omega. Go Omega. I want to show our Bien Biel spirit because Let's face it, whether you speak French or German, Bien and Biel have something to offer, and Omega has something to offer any watch collector. Bernardo D. of Dubai wears his Grand Seiko SPGA 373 while driving his Mark 6 VW GTI. I love them both. Anthony S. and his new Omega Speedmaster Moonwatch Moonphase. We got an Omega on our screen. They're sharing a moment. Newly acquired. Anthony, wear it in good health. Dylan L., who is one of my most stalwart supporters here and elsewhere online, is the king of the road with his Rolex Air King and BMW. James L. shares his well-worn Rolex Submariner 5513, bought new in 1991. Can you imagine there was a time when a Rolex watch, a steel Submariner, would sit new in a case for more than a year? That watch was out of production 2 years by the time he bought it. And Abdul R. flies in style with his Rolex Explorer 2 Polar Dial en route to a vacation in Egypt. Guys, send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com to see your analog on my digital, your wrist on my list. Okay, Danny S. from DC joining in. Danny is another longtime supporter. I cannot imagine Tim ever being mad or angry and pounding a desk. Oh, off camera, someday we're going to do like Tim Masso Untold. And it's going to be like all of my diva acts off screen. Throwing things, pounding, terrorizing the staff. What else is going on? Eric Nielsen saying, Tim, car YouTube request. A modern, reliable, all-wheel drive that channels the Type B Audi Quattro of the 80s. All right, I can do that. But first, we're returning to the most expensive Omega watches continued. Sean, you and I are professionally finished. I'm kidding. Okay, no discussion of the most expensive Omega watches is complete without a Moonwatch, and we've got a great one here. This is one of the coolest watches Omega has released in a while. The Omega Speedmaster Moonwatch 321 Platinum. This one came out in the 50th anniversary of the Moonwatch. It was a big year for Omega across the board, and it heralded the re-release of Calibre 321. This is a very special watch, and an arm's length photo doesn't really do it justice. So unlike the subsequent Ed White, the 321 PT is a modern 42mm professional style cased Moonwatch with no vintage pretensions. This was the initial platform for the relaunch of the Calibre 321, which you remember as the movement that was on the pre-Moon watches, and paradoxically, the pre-Moon was the watch that actually went to the moon. Well, now you can have the best of both worlds with a modern Moonwatch equipped with this historic manual wind Lemania-based column wheel caliber. So, the dial, let's jump back to that because that's probably the real highlight. You can't wear them upside down, guys. It employs a polished and slivered black onyx base, moon meteorite subdials, white gold hands and indices, and vintage style logos. You get all of that. And guys, it is moon meteorite, not just generic meteorite. You can also see the vintage elements at the top of the dial. It is very subtle and beautifully done to the point that the photina here is so beautifully subtle. That's the kind of patina you generally get with real tritium, which tends not to turn the wacky and wild orange-yellow colors of radium. This is a truly rare effort of rare beauty. To top it all off, you get a ceramic bezel insert and a sapphire crystal. This model adds to the platinum alloy for extra warmth a little bit of gold. So it's not quite as white as platinum is inclined to be. There's some gold in there to offset it and make it a more endearing, emotionally appealing piece without sacrificing the wonderful wrist feel of platinum. The model, or I should say this model, is very special and very expensive. It is the ultimate high luxury Moonwatch for an out-of-this-world price of $59,400, and in spite of that price, there is a waiting list for this watch. Let's jump and see what you guys think of my diva act. We got a question from Zafar asking, Tim, what are you wearing today? I'm predictable, guys. If you know me well, this is my Zen EZM 1.1. I've been wearing it since 2018. It's not the last watch. It's not the end of collecting. I'm just taking a little bit of time to gain skills on the watchmaking side and think about what my next watch should be. I've definitely given myself the opportunity to reflect. Thomas Kim just purchased the Seamaster Professional 300 today. Wear it in good health. Congratulations. What else is going on? Edward Ledden saying you've thrown a JLC, Tim. I prefer to use the word tossed, and it was my watch, and it was on carpet. That was the unseen part of that stunt. What else is going on here? We have Barris saying, Tim, you never ever have that angry face. I'm not really really a guy to get angry. Sometimes I get a little bit down and frustrated, but I'm not like the kind who likes to vent. What else is going on? We have Steve M saying Tim is going to snap and pound the desk if people keep ripping on his hair. My hair is the ultimate low maintenance head. Like literally, I get it shaved off every 4.5 months for 20 bucks at Supercuts. Saves money for watches. All right, jumping finally, and you knew this was going to happen. We're jumping to the ultimate Omega. It is literally the Omega. So, you knew this would come. It's the Omega Tourbillon, and it is a very special watch. So there are two versions. At 38.7 millimeters, there is the traditional automatic DeVille central tourbillon, and this is the Omega Tourbillon as I've known it for most of my life. This was the original aspirational high horology Omega for me growing up as a kid who liked watches in the late 90s, early 2000s. It is a direct descendant of the watch Omega launched in 1994 to celebrate their centennial and to stun the world. It's largely unchanged in the form you see it since 2007, but that's not a bad thing. Much of star watchmaker Maurice Grimm's original work remains in place on this watch. So if you're familiar with the 1994 original, this watch carries a lot of the same underlying solutions, including, for example, hands for hours and minutes that are on sapphire discs that orbit the central tourbillon, and they're actually driven by pinions that sit underneath the bezel. This stunner is a chronometer, a flying tourbillon, and a coaxial escapement with those orbital time-telling features and a wonderful transparent dial that shows you most of the underlying action. At $137,000, this watch is worth the price of admission for the movement alone, and the movement is overwhelming. You could see that flying tourbillon structure. You could see the overcoil. You could see the coaxial escapement which rides on the tourbillon carriage, and the wonderful array of hand finishing from beveling to satination to engine turning to black polishing that you get on this watch from Omega. Calibre 2635 doesn't disappoint in finish or specs. It's automatic winding with a rotor on the reverse side, which gives you unimpeded access to all the best looking parts of the movement on the dial side. I always like to say you can't wear them upside down, but with Calibre 2635 you kinda can. Now, for those with bigger budgets and perhaps bigger wrists, there are bigger Omega tourbillons and newer versions. Upgraded for 2020, this is the 44 millimeter, now master chronometer, DeVille Tourbillon Master Chronometer. It is all those things. It is exceptional in subtle two-tone, but it is a big watch. It now includes a solid gold flying tourbillon movement. This is caliber 2640, and you could see that we can jump back and forth between those photos. It's got spiral arabesque Côte de Genève. It has black polishing. It has mirrored beveling. It has satination of wheels and keyless works. If we fly to the other side, you can see 2 mainspring barrels for 3 days of power reserve and a caseback power reserve indicator. You can see that the interiors of the bridges have been frosted, much like you'll find on Grunefeld watches. And much like Grunefeld watches, there's an intermediate raised channel that's been satinated around the edges of the bridges, as well as the jewel sinks, and a mirrored bevel on the very edge of the bridges. So you get all of that. There is no need to compromise. Each one is individually numbered, and each one is assembled exclusively by the Tourbillon shop. They have a small number of folks who just build and finish these things all day long. Remember, the movement is solid gold, 18-karat bridges and plates, and not only is it made the same way as an FP Journe movement, but it has technical refinements even FP Journe does not have, with the amagnetic qualities, the coaxial escapement, the flying tourbillon, I mean, there's just so much to love here, alongside the fact that this is a master chronometer. It goes through the same anti-magnetism, shock-resistant, power reserve, and chronometry standards that a Seamaster 300 goes through. There's no high horology excuse built in. FP Journe calls his chronomètre bleu chronomètre, but he doesn't send it to the COSC. This has to pass those standards and the Métas standards, both. Only the Omega Tourbillon shop works on them, and as a result, you will pay for the privilege at $156,000 for the watch that we just saw. Guys, these are the most expensive Omega watches you can buy right now. Every year at Basel World, and now that Basel is gone, every year on its own, Omega launches new special gold and platinum versions of existing models, as well as gold and platinum versions of new models. And I am thrilled to see what those will be this year, because Omega makes genuinely exotic watches for those who prepare to pay the price. Now, let's take a look at viewer wrist shots number 4. John D. of Long Island, my origin story. Long Island with the Cartier Roadster. It's like where I started and where I ended up all in one photo. And he's celebrating the classics. Guys tell me that if only one Cartier watch could be resurrected from the past, this is the one they most often recommend and request. On full bracelet, no less. That is a modern classic. Adam K. impresses with his vintage Christmas bezel that is red and green. Elgin Day Date, an American watch on an American watch show. Fadi Y from Jerusalem captures his sister Mary's new Cartier Tank Small. That's a very generous gift of you. Simon H. and his Rolex Sea Dweller chow down in Napa, California with a thick state. And Herb M. is in Texas Hill Country with his Oris Big Crown 403 and Subaru Outback XT. Guys, I love all watches and all cars. Send me a shot of both. Send them to mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com to see your watches and wheels on this window. Guys, thanks to everyone who joined. If you got up early, if you stayed up late, if you participated, Sean for making the magic happen. Time out, Tim out. Thanks for logging on, and be well.